Hey guys, it's time for another deep dive. And if you caught my fresh fragrances video from a few days ago, it was almost 3 hours long. We had around 125 fragrances featured in that video. And some of you guys were mentioning that I had no timestamps on that video, but there were timestamps on the video. It's just, I found out this afterwards. If you have more than 100 chapters or timestamps in a video, it doesn't show up. But if you click into the info box, you can find it there. But since it is still summer, I'm trying to focus on fresh fragrances for deep dives. And then I think once July is over, maybe a little bit into August, I'll start switching things up and stop doing the fresh themed videos. But today I've got 51, I think it's 51 from the count, bergamot focused fragrances. Some of the fragrances are more about the bergamot. Some of the other fragrances are fragrances that are a bit more of a supporting note, the bergamot that is. But a lot of these, or most of these, or all of these do feature bergamot quite substantially. Let me know if you're a fan of bergamot. I feel like bergamot is the most famous citrus note. A lot of people look it up. I think it's even more popular or more famous than lemons, grapefruit, oranges, mandarin oranges, and things like that. Let me know if you're a fan of bergamot. Now, bergamot for me is in a lot of fragrances as a supporting player, but not even a supporting player, but more like a very limited supporting player. Imagine a movie it's like a 2-hour movie. One actor appears for 10 minutes. A lot of times, that's kind of what the bergamot provides in fragrances. But I tried to find fragrances here that are more about the bergamot. And even though there's a lot of fragrances out there about the bergamot, some of them are a bit more of a supporting player where you'll experience the bergamot quite a bit. But some of the other notes are a bit more prominent, if that makes sense. But there's a good chunk of bergamot fragrances here. I'm going to get started with the list. Also, before I start, I thought that these videos would be easier to air, but I feel like there's always interruptions that come up. I'm in a public building, so there's doors knocking. I have to pause the video. There's bottles dropping. I have to pause the video. So I do have to do a little bit of editing because my table is a bit small and there's a lot of fragrances on this table. I fit 51 fragrances here today. So it's a bit tight and I hope nothing falls. I hope there's no issues and I can just run it through. But still, I have to, find the places for the timestamps, and that takes me a lot of time. Hopefully there's not going to be a lot of interruptions, that I can just air it as is, and I can figure out a way for YouTube to automatically do the chapters, but it takes time for that. But honestly, again, I'm sorry about the last video. If you haven't caught it because there was no chapters, there are chapters. I set them up myself. It's just, it doesn't appear that it is unless you click into the info box and they're there. If you ever see that, always click into the info box to see, because this might happen again, I don't know. But since we only have 51 fragrances here and I don't have like different sections, so it's going to be probably 51 chapters plus an intro and an outro. So less than 55 chapters, so it should appear as normal. One last thing, I do have an unboxing here. One of the fragrances that I'm going to feature today is a new fragrance that I bought in France, in Paris, at the Paris Charles de Gaulle airport. Best deal, by the way, to get them at the Charles de Gaulle airport. You don't have to deal with taxes as well. You just get them tax-free and you just fly. And so I'm going to do an unboxing of that and talk about it. So that comes somewhat in the middle of the video. But let's get started with the first fragrance. We're going to the house of Acqua di Parma. This is Bergamotto di Calabria. So Bergamotto di Calabria is part of the Blue Mediterraneo collection, as you can see right there. Blue Mediterraneo collection fragrances are some of my favorite Acqua di Parma fragrances. And I first discovered it with Fico di Amalfi back in like the mid-2000s. Bottles used to be different. I wish I had I might have a bottle, one of my classic bottles, come to think of it. I have to look around. But they used to be in different bottles. But this one's, to me, all about the bergamot. And what's unique about the bergamot as a node, it's a citrus fruit that mostly is provided for fragrances, But when I travel to the south of France for duty free, there's a gelateria there. I've never seen it in Italy, but this gelateria has a bergamot sorbet that's to die for delicious. Also, there's a bergamot liqueur. So if you're ever into the delicacy of bergamot, look those things up, because you can eat it, but it's mostly used in perfumes. And as I said, a lot of times in perfumes, it's a supporting player, but there's a lot of fragrances out there where it's a star. And here with Blue Mediterraneo Bergamotto di Calabria, it is a star. But to me, bergamot smells a bit floral, not necessarily too astringent and sharp and tart, but also not necessarily sweet either. It's kind of a nice balance. And I feel like it's kind of a cure-all for a lot of fragrances to give it that kind of freshness that sometimes fragrances need. And this is kind of like that. It's not anything uber intense and amazing. It's a pretty simplistic citrus, aromatic, and probably spicy and woody experience where the bergamot is the star here. And let me know if you're a fan of this one. Add a comment below. We're moving on to a fragrance from the house of Atelier Cologne. That brand is so completely confusing now. I don't know what the heck L'Oreal is doing with it. But recently I noticed that Cedar Atlas was selling at the discounter, so I hyped it up a little bit. It's a great cedar fragrance, but it's very fresh. And this was one of my very first Atelier Cologne loves, but again, uncertain about what's going on with this brand. But this is Bergamot Soleil. This one, to me, I feel like it's a citrus blast. It's a sunshine blast. Soleil, obviously, is the sun. So you experience that, and you also experience the citruses ripened, juicy, and again, sweet, not necessarily tart. Here, it smells a little better to me than the Acqua de Parma, because there's a bit of a juiciness about it, a bit more sweetness about it. There's probably additional citruses here. I feel like there's woods and also spicy aromatics thrown in as well. Once again, simplistic fragrance, not necessarily uber exciting, but a lot of times people want these fresh citruses, cologne-like, eau de cologne style fragrances. And I think bergamot satisfies, or bergamot note satisfies. And here, again, very simplistic, not super sweet, not super tart, nice balance, and it's a bit floral too. I feel like there's definitely florals. And since bergamot has a bit of a floralcy, I feel like perfumers add flowers to the mix, like jasmine and things like that. And it brings out the flowers even further, which I kind of feel like there is happening a little bit here. So this I would consider a citrus solar fragrance. It's called Bergamot Soleil from the house of Atelier Cologne. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. We're moving on to the next fragrance from the house of Bon Parfumeur. It's 601, Vetiver, Cedar, and Bergamot. So Vetiver, Cedar, woods, obviously. Vetiver is a bit grassy. There's an earthiness about it, slightly smoky sometimes. And the cedar can, not necessarily grassy, but the cedar can be smoky. Of course, it's woody. And then you've got all the juiciness of the bergamot in this one. So for me, there's a slight greenness in this as well. And I think the bergamot will provide that a little bit here. But it's so juicy. It's a kind of woody fragrance that I like. It's not like just woods. I think the bergamot is playing a major role here. It's running the show along with the cedar and the vetiver, which is what the brand does. They highlight the three different standout notes, as you can see right there. So if you like something woody, grassy, earthy, and citrusy, juicy, and green, I think this 601 should satisfy. I really like it. It's very, very fresh. The citrus, again, is a prominent note, but it's not just citruses. There's some substance there with the woods. Now, next we're moving on to the house of Bvlgari. This is, I got the wrong one. Damn, I'm going to have to pause the camera. All right, back with you guys. I got the right fragrance now. Sorry about that. But this is from the house of Bvlgari. This is called Magnifying Bvlgari. Or I should say Magnifying Bergamot. So this collection of fragrances in the Magnifying series are, I think, enhancers to enhance a lot of the Bvlgari fragrances. Like, for example, this one you can use with Tigar to give your Tigar a bit more of a juicy, citrusy bergamot edge. But you don't have to just stick with the Bvlgari fragrances. You can use it with other brands' fragrances as well, but also you can use it on its own. It's a bit more simplistic. It's not like super complex, but it's all about the bergamot, and I like that about it. I have 3 of these. I bought the patchouli, which is kind of cool to enhance, fragrances that might want a boost of patchouli. There's also the myrrh that I bought, and then of course bergamot, which I love the smell of. It's so super fresh, invigorating, juicy, and very citrusy. And there's some light flowers in there as well. But if you like simplistic fragrances, these might do it for you. So good. I do get a little bit of a Tigar in there, and I thought Tigar was all about grapefruit, but I feel like that's the only citrus note that they're crediting. There might be, in the background, there might be bergamot in it. Like, for example, Sospiro's Vibrato has a lot of bergamot in it. Most likely Tigar does as well. So I feel like this is a perfect tool to enhance and boost up your, Tigar and other fragrances if you want something citrusy added to it. So it's magnifying bergamot, as you can see right there, from the house of Bvlgari. Let me know if you're familiar with that. Now, I do have a cheat sheet here of all the fragrances we're talking about. I made a list. And as I said, we've got about 51 fragrances. We're moving on to, my alphabet. It's certainly not alphabetized, unfortunately. So we went from Bon Parfumeur, Bvlgari to Akro Smile. So I'm a little off with my notes right here. I apologize. So alphabetically, we're a little off. But Akro Smile is a fruity, fresh, musky fragrance. So we've got a lot of bergamot here. So it gives us a lot of the freshness. There's fruity touches and musky touches as well. And it creates for a very fresh experience. For sure, the musk is perfect. It's clean. It's like a white musk here, not dirty, not animalic. And you've got that fruitiness, gives you a little bit more of a fun and happy feeling here. And all that juicy, invigorating qualities of the bergamot, which again, if they put in lemons in here, it might be a bit too astringent, it'd be a little too tart. I think the bergamot really does a nice balancing act of being not too tart, not too sweet, and it complements the musk in here and also the fruitiness. So in the end, you've got this very clean, fruity, musky experience that makes for a bit of a boring fragrance, but I feel like there's people that enjoy fragrances like this. This is not something that you have to put a lot of thought into it. You've got the citruses, you've got the fruitiness, and you also have the muskiness. So just pretty much a grab-and-go fragrance. I don't want to use the word dumb reach, but kind of is a dumb reach fragrance because there's not so much happening. It's easy to wear. It won't turn you off. It's clean, and it'll make you smell great, kind of a thing. So that is Smile from the House of Akro. Let me know if you're familiar with that one. I believe we featured samples of that in our mystery box from last year. But next we're going to the House of Celine. I'm hoping the rest of the fragrances are correct. Celine's Parade is next. And one of the best citrus fragrances from the designer's world. This stuff smells so magical. I absolutely love it. If I am the biggest fan of black tie from this house, then I think Parade is definitely like a top 3. For sure a top 5, because this Parade smells amazing. And it's a really nice combo of not only the bergamot's juiciness. This is super, super juicy. Just imagine cutting that bergamot in half. It's ripened to the max. It's collected all the juice, and you're like squeezing it, and it's just spurting juice everywhere. You got a lot of that juiciness here, but you also have a lot of citrus floral notes, and you've got the I think you've got the leaves of the orange tree in here as well. It's a bit green. And then, of course, that DNA of the Celine fragrances. There's a powdery undertone here. And I feel like the DNA of Celine fragrances is orris or iris. So I feel like that iris and something else is giving it a DNA, which I can kind of pick up in here a little bit. It's under there, but also in a lot of their other fragrances. I feel like there's also a little bit of moss in here, which they use quite frequently in Celine fragrances. At least the first batch of the Celine fragrances. This is super awesome. I absolutely love it. If you like a great, advanced, luxurious take on your, eau de cologne style fragrances, but more elevated, more luxurious, as I said, Celine's Parade is awesome. And the bergamot in here is the juiciest variety of bergamot. So awesome smelling. Parade is definitely, as I said, definitely a top 5, but it might be a top 3 for me as well. Okay, we're going to the house of Chanel. Yes, I am featuring one Chanel, even after all the craziness. It's Paris Biarritz, because this is really, really good, guys. It's a great fragrance. This is from the collection called Eau Les Eaux, I think it's called, Leseaux. And Biarritz and Deauville are my 2 favorites, but Biarritz might be my favorite in the bunch. Although Edinburgh is also really great. Edinburgh is a very masculine. This is definitely masculine as well, in a citrusy, aromatic kind of a way. But it's green. Yeah, we've got a bit of greenness coming in from bergamot, by the way. It's floral. It's aromatic, super juicy, clean, and a tiny, tiny little bit of that Chanel DNA goes in there. It does go in here. I can pick it up for sure. It's there. It's a DNA that's running across a lot of their fragrances, and it's here. I guess I get a little bit of slight aldehydic something in here, which kind of connects me to their DNA. I'm not saying this is super aldehydic, but there's something under there that connects the fragrance to the brand's DNA, if that makes sense. But this is a really, really great fragrance, guys. If you haven't tried this, do try it. I think it's fairly underrated. This collection, I think it's fairly underrated. I feel like when it first launched, it was exclusively selling at Nordstrom. Then I think it started selling elsewhere as well. But super awesome, very juicy, very fresh, refreshing, and invigorating. So we're going to 2 fragrances from the house of... See, there we go. We do have accidents happen. This table is pretty crowded, so I'm going to push things back a little bit. But we do have 2 fragrances from the house of Commodity. And I'm kind of like all out of bergamot from Commodity. So this fragrance for me, I felt like was chock full of vetiver. When I smell this one, I pick up vetiver for some strange reason, or something grassy mixed in. And I'm kind of using this up, and I don't even know if I have another backup of this, and I don't even know if they make this anymore. Again, fragrances in this video might not all be selling. Double check. Like, I don't know what the status with Atelier Cologne's Bergamot Soleil is. I think when I was putting the notes down for this video, I did notice that there was some stock out there, but they weren't like cheap. They were kind of higher priced, but I feel like there's still stock out there. And again, I don't know anything about what Atelier Cologne is doing. But let's go back to Commodity. Commodity's bergamot felt like there was a lot of vetiver in there. I get a grassy effect under there. It could be from aromatics, but I almost connected it with, they also have a fragrance called Vetiver, which I felt like vetiver smelled a bit like, bergamot, but with the vetiver boosted up with less bergamot kind of a thing in there. So you can kind of combine the 2 together. It kind of works together. I don't even know if that was the intention with that fragrance, but I got a similarity between the 2, whereas this one was more bergamot and the other one was more vetiver, but vetiver had a little bergamot and bergamot had a little vetiver kind of a thing. But it's a great one. It's juicy, but it's a very grassy. There's a grassiness in here, and again, that's what reminded me of the vetiver being pretty prominent. But also, it kind of tones down the characteristics of the bergamot. It becomes a bit more, I don't want to use the word watered down, but it acts a bit like neutered kind of a thing, like it's not all about bergamot. It's kind of like washed with woods kind of a thing, the bergamot is. So you're not smelling just bergamot. It kind of is like diluted with other notes, in this case like something vetiver. But the next fragrance in the Commodity line that I have here is Moss. The OG Moss is so chock full of bergamot, and I love Moss because it's moss, it's petitgrain, and it's a lot of bergamot. These 3 notes together, working magically together. The petitgrain is in the end, the leaves of the bitter orange tree. So it really complements the juiciness of the bergamot. And then, of course, the moss is also there to kind of accentuate a bit of its earthiness, but also like there's bitterness there with the moss, which the Petitgrain also has. So everything is working wonderfully together for this mossy, juicy, bitter, citrusy experience. That's so gorgeous. Really wonderful offering here. I really love this fragrance. I do enjoy the Plus more, but this version has more of the bergamot's juiciness. The Plus is a bit more boosted with the moss and the Petitgrain note, with the less juiciness of the bergamot note. But it's a matter of what you like. I'm highlighting bergamot in this video, and this version of moss has the most juiciness of the bergamot. And if you like it less bergamot and you want the moss and the Petitgrain, go with the Plus, because it's to die for delicious. Anyway, that's moss from the House of Commodity. Now again, as I said, not all these fragrances are about the bergamot being the star. It's about bergamot working with some other notes, but there are a lot of fragrances here that focus on the bergamot. But this next one, or the next two fragrances, are from Creed. They have a lot of bergamot in them, but they're not about the bergamot. This is Himalaya. That's the first fragrance. Himalaya has a bit of metallic coldness. I don't know if you guys get metallic from this fragrance. Obviously, you've got the color. It's kind of acting metallic, silver, all that good stuff. So there's definitely a crispness here. And there's a lot of juiciness from the bergamot in here. And once again, the bergamot is not the star here, but it's supporting a lot of the other notes in here. So it's just very, very metallic, ice cold experience. And I forget this fragrance. I forget to feature it in videos that are, I'm speaking about ice cold fragrances. For example, in the fresh fragrances video from a few days ago, I had a whole section in there called ice cold. This fragrance would have fit in there perfectly because, you know, it's metallic, it's cold, it's not warm whatsoever. It's very, very fresh. And, you know, the inspiration is appropriate, this kind of very cold, crisp, clean, and metallic experience with a lot of bergamot touches. So that is Himalaya. Let me know if you're familiar with that. There's a little bit of a laundry clean-like effect in that one as well. Let me know if you guys get that. But the next fragrance is Silver Mountain Water. I almost feel like this is the one that should be Silver Mountain Water because of the color of the bottle. But it is the white bottle, obviously. This is a tea-focused fragrance. Dropping things. I think I might have to get a bigger table if I can find a bigger table. But anyway, dropping things, as I said. But this is a tea-focused fragrance, and it's clean and fluffy and quite musky. Let me know if you're a fan of this. When I first got on the scene, I love the smell of this one, actually. Brings back memories. There was a fragrance I was wearing when I first got on YouTube on my previous channel. And there was a brand called Al Rehab. They had their own version of this, which was this very inexpensive cheapie. But this, to me, there's a softness about it. It's a cleanness about it. It's musky for sure, and also very, very fresh. Once again, these two fragrances have a lot of bergamot in them, but the bergamot is not the star. You know, it's not about the bergamot, but the bergamot comes in quite strong. It's there to help it along. It's a key ingredient or a key note, but there's other things happening with these fragrances. But both of them are great, very fresh fragrances, quite pricey because Creed prices are so expensive. But then again, I think if you have the money, get it, or look for them at discounters, or wait for like promotions at the department stores which sell these fragrances and things like that. Because in the end, I think they're pretty good quality. It's just they're overpriced. Next, we're going to the House of Essential Parfums. This is Nice Bergamot, or is it Nice Bergamot? I always question the owner of this brand. She said, you can say whatever you want. So I was in Nice recently in the south of France. That's why I'm bringing that up. But also, did you guys take advantage of our 2-for-1 bottles? We did that last weekend. And I think there might be a few more things left. I think the floral musk box is still there. And as of the shooting of this video, I think we were done with everything else. But Nice Bergamot is a great take on a bergamot fragrance from the house of Essential Parfums. It's very clean. It's very fresh. It's juicy. It's effervescent, bright. But I feel like there's, some citrus floral notes in here. There's additional juicy fruits in here, but it's the bergamot that's running the show pretty much. You buy this one for the bergamot because it's so fresh and so invigorating and, cooling as well when it's extremely warm outside. For the first time today, I am picking up something fruity in this one. And I don't recall something fruity being in here. Maybe it's the fruitiness of the citruses. In the end, they are fruits, but I'm thinking something lightly stone fruity. I don't recall osmanthus being a note in Nice Bergamot. Let me know. I'll look it up later after I'm done shooting. But that's a great scent, and I hope you guys took advantage of that 2-for-1 because we had the citrus box, and the citrus box was Nice Bergamot and Orange X Santal. But I believe we also had some boxes that the Nice Bergamot came in with the Vanilla Divine Vanille. But those we ran out so fast. I think the only one that's left is the rose and the musk box. Okay, next going to the house of Estee Lauder. And I am featuring this here because there's a lot of bergamot in this with the overdose of its tea and iris. This is Tender Light from their private collection, but guys, this collection died so fast. Nobody was talking about this collection. I don't know what the heck happened. It didn't catch on. My favorite in the collection was Radiant Mirage. So good. That fragrance is so good. So super sexy. This, on the other hand, is fresh, powdery, and cozy tea. So it's a bit green, very iris forward. You've got that creaminess of the iris in here, but super powdery. So it's basically, once again, not just about the bergamot. It's a lot of other things happening with it, but it smells really, really great. If you like your citruses with a little powdery edge and also the addition of tea, this is the one for you. And I feel like I shot some videos with, I went to Provence and to Grasse with some perfumers, learning that tea works really great with bergamot. There's a lot of citrus fragrances with a lot of tea notes. They kind of work wonderfully together. And here, I feel like it's a match made in heaven, not only with the bergamot and the tea, but also the iris that's in here providing the powdery touches. That's Tender Light, created by Givaudan perfumer Shyamala Maison Dew. Did you guys try this one? I feel like that's also a bit musky and clean. It's more of a personal fragrance, like a skin scent, but I absolutely love that smell. And again, going back to that collection, I don't know what's going on. It's gone. They're all gone. Disappointing, but they're all gone. So next, we're going to the house of Ex Nihilo. It's the Hedonist. You guys familiar with the Hedonist? So the Hedonist, to me, reminds me of Tigar, which reminds me of Vibrato, which reminds me of Kajal 3. But when I compare the Hedonist with those fragrances, it's the driest of them all. Super dry. Like super, super dry. It's a bit different in the end. Not identical, but I'm getting similarities to it. There's a zing here. I feel like there's grapefruity, gingery touches. But the dryness is kind of throwing me off. But it smells great, don't get me wrong. But I always mention dry fragrances do not last on me as much as fragrances that are not dry, like syrupy fragrances, I should say. But in the end, if you want a little change of pace from Tigar, from Vibrato, from Kajal 3, or anything else that smells like the Tigar, try the Hedonist. I think the Hedonist is also created by Jordi Fernandez, who is like become like the hot new perfumer, also from Givaudan, and Givaudan, of course, houses Canton Biche, which he keeps cranking out fragrances, and you know the brands sell out of his fragrances. So, but let me know if you're a fan of Ex Nihilo's The Hedonist, and also let me know if you're a fan of the brand in general. What do you think about that brand? I personally think their fragrances are a little overpriced for what you get, but they do make some really awesome fragrances. Okay, this next one is from the house of Ferrari. It's Radiant Bergamot. Yeah, I didn't really give a good review of the Ferrari fragrances, unfortunately. I'm sure some of you probably remember. I'm highlighting it here because it's a bergamot fragrance, and you might not have the budget for the Hedonist, and you want something cheap like Radiant Bergamot. So Radiant Bergamot to me smells like a fragrance that's your traditional eau de cologne like fragrance, but the ones you pick up from the drugstore in Europe. That's like 10 euros or 15 euros or something. That's not a bad thing, but I mean, sometimes it's a good thing, but it does smell like that, the quality. So I don't remember how much I paid for this, but I buy fragrances from drugstores and things like that, so I have no problem with it. But I feel like what I'm trying to say is, I think what I paid for this, the price was not worth that. Does that make sense? In the end, I think everybody has a different budget. So if you're in the market to buy a bergamot fragrance and you are looking for something, again, I don't remember what the price point on this is now and what I paid for, but I felt like I paid around $50 to $70, but I felt like the pricing of that should be a lot less. This was probably like 6, 7, 8 years ago when I did my video, and I still have my bottle. I don't ever get rid of any of my bottles. I paid for this, by the way. But the fragrance does smell like it's costs only around $15, $20, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's bergamot, it's juicy, it's got that kind of, vintage or old school cologne vibe, which that's not bad at all. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. Add a comment below. And again, I don't even know if those fragrances still sell or exist. I just compiled a list of all of my bergamot focused fragrances, or fragrances that feature bergamot, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So next, going to the house of, where are we at? Floris, a fragrance I reviewed. It's Bergamotto di Positano. So this time bergamot is going into a gourmand direction. So you're in Positano, you're at a hotel, it has a nice balcony overlooking the sea, it's warm out, you've just woken up and you've been brought room service, you're sitting in the balcony drinking a little tea, eating on these nibbly sweet treats and staring out at the water. And that's the experience you get with Bergamotto di Positano. And again, it's sweet, it's a bit spicy, it's marine as well. You've got marine touches because in the end, you're on the coast right there. It's the Positano. And of course, you've got a lot of bergamot. And I believe, I think it's called Capua, the company that farms, I believe, the bergamot in that region of Positano, I believe, in the south. I think it makes sense that they've given this name Bergamotto di Positano because it's in that region. And I've met that company at various events, like perfume events and things like that. And I believe they are the world's premier company for bergamot for fragrances. And I think most perfume companies go through them. But yeah, the picture that I just painted for you guys is exactly what I get with Bergamotto di Positano from the House of Floris. Next, going to the House of Fragonard. This is Cologne Grand Luxe. Another Givaudan perfumer here. We've got Sonia Constant creating a fragrance that's fresh and easy. It's also a decantable bottle. I bought this from the Fragonard boutique in Paris like a couple years ago. I haven't used much of it. In the end, it's a simplistic take on a citrus with a lot of bergamot. There's some floral notes. There's some aromatics. There's some floral notes, as I said, but there's additional citruses and some aromatics with some woods in the dry down. It might come off a bit old school, a bit, but in the end, it's nice. It's very, very invigorating. It's very, very fresh. I actually was in the south of France, as I've been mentioning, and I visited Malone Oud in Nice. I didn't get to go to Malone Oud in Grasse, and I picked up a fragrance from the Malone Oud boutique. It was a citrus, and I'll talk about it in a haul video in the near future. But let me know if you're familiar with this Cologne Grand Luxe. The reason I bought this is it's fairly inexpensive, and it's also a really large bottle. You've got their logo on the bottom there as well. But I love this bottle, and I just wanted to have a bottle like this, but the juice inside is quite nice. So that's Cologne Grand Luxe. I think that's like $40 or $50 or euros. I can't remember the exact price. So that's from the house of Fragonard, focusing on bergamot. We've got two fragrances from the house of Frederic Malle. First of which is Cologne Indelible. Oh God, I got the wrong fragrance. I keep pulling the wrong fragrances. I'm pausing it right now. Okay, I had Bvlgari Concentré instead of Cologne Indelible. And Bvlgari Concentré is bitter orange, not bergamot. But with the Cologne Indelible, you've got a lot of bergamot with other citruses. And of course, you got a lot of citrus floral notes and some woods and aromatics thrown in as well. So this is an elevated eau de cologne style fragrance in that, for me, the Fragonard that I just spoke about does have some classic touches. This one to me doesn't, even though I feel like the formula or the type of fragrance it is a kind of a classic style. But Dominique Ropion, who created this, did a really wonderful job in taking the fragrance into a bit more of a modern direction. Again, as I said, this style is probably a very classic style, dating back to the 1700s when Farina created his first cologne in the city of Cologne. And so, but I think what Frederic Malle and Dominique Ropion did is make that fragrance style much more modern and also much more concentrated. It's a thick, dense, long-lasting version of that particular style of fragrance. So this is Cologne Indelible from the house of Frederic Malle. And then the next fragrance, it's not necessarily, the star of the fragrance is Magnolia. It's called Eau de Magnolia, but there's a lot of fresh and juicy bergamot thrown in there as well. And to me, the combo is great. For me, when I smell magnolia flowers, just smell them and just focus on them. They smell a little citrusy to me. It's almost like a white flower, but this really gorgeous, big, huge, very creamy white flower with some citrus tones or touches. And you smell the white flower's creaminess, and then you pick up a light lemoniness as well, which is very, very prominent when it's warm outside because those things bake in the heat and the fragrance just comes off of them. And, you know, you're moving around under a tree. I don't know if you guys do that or not, but I love trees and nature and flowers. So I'm always trying to investigate them and see what they're all about. And they can smell. So in the heat, they smell even more fragrant. But here, it's that magnolia smell, just totally amplified, intensely amplified. And I don't get this concentrated of a smell when I actually smell a magnolia. But what they've done here, they have just intensified that smell into perfume form. And you've got the magnolia with the juiciness of the citruses. So it's very, very fresh, very, very invigorating. And if you're shy about floral notes, you're kind of thinking you might want to dig into them, I think magnolia is one of the easier floral notes to start with. It doesn't have a super presence like tuberose or jasmine. It's so strong. Gardenia so strong. Magnolia has a bit more of a faintness about it. I think it's definitely a floral note you can slowly start into, you know, experiencing floral notes. To me, magnolias smell great, but you also pick up the creaminess. They give off a little bit of a creamy lactonic quality. Okay, we're done with Frederic Malle, and we've got two Guerlain fragrances. First of which is from the Acqua Allegoria collection, Bergamotto Calabria, this one right here. I think I mentioned in my Fresh Fragrances video, I discovered this collection for the I mean, I knew about the collection, but the first time I bought fragrances from this collection was on a trip to Spain. And I think it was I thought it was an airport, but I think it was a train station. There was a little perfume shop and they had 50 ml sizes of this and the the basil mandarin. They had those for like for 40-50% off. So that's when I first bought them, and now I'm really into this collection. They have some really nice offerings. I feel like this collection also is a bit similar to Acqua to Parma Blue Mediterraneo collection. So both of them are under LVMH, by the way. So I think this is kind of sort of similar to the Bergamotto di Calabria with Bergamotto Calabria. We also have one more here. Let me show you. Where is it? Bergamotto di Calabria. Like, what the heck? I guess they can't really copyright the names. But anyway, to me, it's similar. It's, once again, not very... It's kind of a nondescript, kind of a citrus fruit. It's a bit juicy. It's not so sour or tart, not so sweet. Because sometimes the bergamot can have those kind of characteristics. And I feel like there's a lot of aromatics thrown in here with additional citruses and some woods. It's very simplistic, easy to wear. And some people like this, and I think it's a popular one since they haven't discontinued it. Bergamot Calabria from the House of Guerlain in the Acqua Allegoria collection. And as I said, I have one unboxing to do here today. This is the fragrance I picked up from the Paris airport. And it's not the only one I bought. I bought several, but this is one of them. So I bought a bottle of the Bergamot Fantastico Extrait from Guerlain. So this would be my third one. They only have 6, I believe. I've been wanting a bottle of this, and when I was in the south of France, man, it was so hot, and I think this smelled really great. One of the reasons why I bought this, and I was kind of like craving a lot of citrusy fragrances. So in the heat, and even though we're inside in the airport, it was still kind of warm, you know? This stuff smelled so good. I bought this. What else did I buy? Losing it right now. I've got too much of the fragrances on the table on my mind. But Bergamot Fantastico is one of the ones I enjoyed. Well, actually, I didn't enjoy it at first, honestly. I felt like the other fragrances in the collection were a little better. But when I was there, it smelled really great. So I wanted to buy it because also, this is like 600 something. In the USA, it was like 400 something over there. Plus, there's no tax on it. So this is it right here. It's a tiny little bottle, but it's an extrait de parfum. And it's, I'm hoping it's long lasting. I haven't really worn it. Let me know if you're a fan of this one. I'm going to spray it on. Okay. I'm glad it's different than from the Bergamot Calabria in the Acqua Allegoria collection. What am I getting? Why am I getting some creaminess in there? Something creamy. When I first spritzed it on skin, I got a little creamy undertone, which it's almost like a whipped citrus cream of some kind. I love desserts that are citrusy and lemony. So it gave me that kind of a vibe a little bit, but that disappeared pretty quick. But in the end, it's a very invigorating, juicy. It's juicy, but I wouldn't say this is the juiciest. I feel like the Celine Parade is much juicier than this. So it does have a little bit of a dryness. I am picking up some leaves of some kind, herbs of some kind. It's pretty thick. But I wouldn't say this is the strongest in the extracts collection. What do you guys think? Bergamot Fantastico Extrait 11. That's what it's titled. I'm going to have to report on this a little bit more. I now have 3 of the extracts. There's 3 more, I think, that are still out there. They're very pricey. Let me know if you're familiar with this one. Are you a fan of it? Add a comment below. What are your thoughts on the price and everything? Let's move on to the next fragrance. We've got Healy's Oranges and Lemons Say the Bells of St. Clements. You guys familiar with this one? What's going on with this brand? I really like this brand, but sadly, I don't see them anywhere in the States. Barney's was pretty much their retailer. And also in the Fresh Fragrances video, I was trying to think of the name of the fragrance that's salty. It's Cell Marin. When I first started doing videos on YouTube, Cell Marin was really, really popular. And I went to Barney's to smell it and I hated it because to me, it smelled very fishy, like it smelled of the sea, and I don't care for it. It has somewhat grown on me to not hate it anymore, but not one of my favorite fragrances. Here with this fragrance, Oranges and Lemons Say the Bells of St. Clements. Once again, it's kind of like Cologne Indelible. It's that style of like the classic eau de cologne style, but modernized. It's very green. There's a lot of petitgrain, a lot of bergamot. There's a lot of floral notes as well. Major dosage of like orange blossom and neroli, and of course other juicy citruses. But behind it, I do pick up some like vetiver, like woods and notes like that. And I feel like it settles to some woodiness, and I think there's some musk in there as well. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the brand and its distribution in the USA. I think they're still at Javoy. I bought a bottle of their ginger fragrance like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago from Javoy. But yeah, they have some good fragrances, but I think it's a bit underrated. I don't know. Next, going to the house of Hermes, it's Eau de Basilic Purpur. Beautiful green color, right? So this is a collection of fragrances that are eau de cologne. Of course, there's Concentrated Orange Vert that I really love. I started wearing Eau de Orange Vert in 2001 when I went on a trip to New Orleans in the heat of summer. And at the Saks there, I bought a bottle of Eau de Orange Vert and a bottle of Jill Sander for Men. I remember what I buy from my trips. And Eau de Orange Vert has been a favorite of mine. They reformulated around 2004 or 2005. Still have my vintage bottle, although that was my second vintage bottle. Now I prefer Concentrated Orange Vert. It's much more substantial compared to the version that's Eau de Orange Vert like this, which is light eau de cologne. But here we've got juicy bergamot with basil. So if you like the idea of basil, you like a lot of Italian food, the usage of basil, for me, taste and smell is hand in hand. So there's a lot of basil used in Italian cuisine, and I know what that smells like. And it's basically transferred here in scent form with the addition of a lot of juicy bergamot. I feel like there's a little musk in here as well. And when I was growing up, my dad's mom, my dad was always gardening, but my dad's mom also gardened, and she grew a lot of basil. And I love that smell of basil. And I can smell it here right now, and it transports me to when I was a little kid with my grandmother's, garden of basil. Anyway, it's an awesome scent memory that just came up that I hadn't had that memory in a long time, but totally transported me to that day as a little kid with the basil. But it's here. It's a Eau de Basilic Purpur. I guess it's purple basil. The water of purple basil, I guess, is what it translates to. So if you like the idea of bergamot and basil together, check that one out. But moving on to a bit more substantial, this is Jo Malone's Cologne Intense Oud and Bergamot. Very long-standing fragrance, very popular, I think, for the brand. It's been around for a while. I think it's a simple, easy to appreciate kind of a nude fragrance. It's freshened up with the bergamot, basically. And the oud in here, to me, is an oud accord. Gives me a little bit of a vibe of Straight to Heaven. I feel like minus the boozy note and also minus the fruity note that's in Straight to Heaven. I get that from this, which if you added the fruits and you added the booziness in here, it would smell like straight to heaven. But it's a nice, easy to wear oud accord with a lot of juicy bergamot. It's a very popular scent. Let me know if you're a fan of it. I think if you don't like intense oudy fragrances, I'm talking about the Western ouds. A lot of you guys are complaining that I'm always referring to ouds that are not oud, but I don't know what to call them. Wood? They're woody fragrances for sure, but it's an oud accord, and that's what the brands call them, and I'm going to call them oud, even though they're not the real thing, right? So if you cannot tolerate the real oud that's funky, cheesy, moldy, animalic, this is an easy oud to appreciate, even though it's not a real oud. Anyway, Oud and Bergamot from the house of Jo Malone. Next, we've got sort of a cheapie from the house of Korres. It's white tea, and here we go with tea and bergamot once again. What's really cool about the Korres fragrances, the prices were cheaper. It's gone up to $65 for a 50 ml. You can see the notes breakdown right in front there. As you can see, it's listing bergamot as a note. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening here, but it's a smooth, cozy, fresh, clean take on white tea with, of course, the citrusy touch of bergamot. And for a while, I was recommending their black sugar, but they have a few other fragrances now that actually, when I went to Greece last year, I went to their store and there was a fig fragrance, and I'm forgetting the name of, that was really great. I don't have it, sadly, but I got a lot of fig fragrances. This one to me also smells musky and almost smelling like the musk in MFK fragrances. Kind of clean and fabricy, like dryer sheets almost. But again, it's got a very soft, pillowy kind of softness, cleanness, and of course, citrusiness with the bergamot in there. So that is white tea from the house of Korres. Let me know if you're a fan of that one or you're familiar with it. I first discovered that brand in the early 2000s. I believe they were pretty hot then. And I think that's when they first were on the scene, from what I remember. Or at least that's when I first discovered them. And now they have stores, and, you know, they have an online USA store, by the way, also. Next, this is the last of the fragrances on the first page. It's Laboratorio Olfattivo Bergamotto. So this is a fragrance created by Jean-Claude Elena for Laboratorio Olfattivo. In fact, the whole collection is created by Jean-Claude Elena. This is a Parfum Cologne concentration. So unique names that brands come up with for various fragrances. I've got a fragrance here from Nishane called Extrait the Cologne. So they do interesting things with this different concentrations. But to me, it's a straightforward, simplistic bergamot fragrance. It's a bit juicy. It's a bit, kind of tart. It's a bit sweet. But once again, somewhat nondescript because it's kind of flat and it's not too tart or too sweet. You know, there's some floralcy there, light floralcy, some, light aromatics and muskiness and woods in there as well. So it's a very, very simplistic. Sometimes bergamot can be overly simplistic. Then sometimes it doesn't warrant owning that because it's not exciting. But I think the collection has some great fragrances. Their blood orange and their grapefruit are really, really great. But this one seems a little underwhelming for me, especially for bergamot. And I love the smell of bergamot. So that is Bergamotto from the house of Laboratorio Olfattivo. Let me know if you're familiar with it. That is created by Jean-Claude Elena. It definitely has his touch all over it. Next, we're switching the sheets. And we've got not as many fragrances on this page, just 2 less. Wow, we've got still a long way to go. But we're going to the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. This is Sur l'Herbe, another eau de cologne fragrance. Is that correct? What am I doing here? There we go. And I've recommended this one also in the fresh video. It did come in a different bottle before. It was a kind of a yellowish tone bottle, clear. Now it's the darkened bottle, but it is an eau de cologne once again. Sur la Herbe is a really great citrus aromatic fragrance. Lots of juicy citruses. There's aromatics there, light floral notes. There's a somewhat green succulent quality in this one as well. And I much prefer this over the Bergamotto. Bergamotto is just too simplistic. So this one, there's a little bit of a puckeriness, you know, sometimes when a citrus is too tart and you get that kind of a reaction in your mouth. It gives me that a little bit, which makes it a little bit more exciting because I do like tart fragrances. I'm not saying this is overly tart or sour, but it gives me that. But also it's a bit succulent, it's a bit green. It's very, very fresh, and I like it a lot more than Bergamotto. So this is Sur la Herbe. So when I think the name is Sur la Herbe, the herb I'm assuming is referring to herbs. So there's aromatics in there. I think that's what it is, but it's a great scent. If you haven't tried it, do. And then I think one of the best bergamot fragrances of all time happens to be Bergamot 22. To me, it smells like heaven. It's such a heavenly smell. Wish it lasted longer, but it is heavenly. Now I'm waiting. Estee Lauder is behind Le Labo, and they haven't really made extrait de parfum concentration of a lot of their popular fragrances here at Le Labo or at Frederick Mall. Is this something they're going to do? Because they just started doing it with Kilian, and Kilian is also under Estee Lauder. And of course, they do a lot of it with Tom Ford. Will they do it with Bergamot 22? Because it deserves it. Although concentration changes the smell. Again, this smell is so magical. It's so heavenly. It's so orgasmic. Oh, I love it. It's just made so beautifully. It's like, I drink lemon juice, I drink lemonade, I drink citrus juices. For me, this juice in this bottle makes me want to consume it. But obviously, I'm not going to do it. But it smells that delicious. It's floral. You have the flowers. You've got the leaves. There's the greenness. But lots of the juiciness. There's musks in here. Light woods, grassy woods. So good. So good. Let me know if you're a fan of the smell. I mean, you don't have to be a fan of the performance, but the smell. It's the smell. That's, for me, what it's all about, the smell. And yeah, I do like long-lasting fragrances, of course. I like my fragrances to last. But that smell is so magical. I think out of all the fragrances here, it's all about that smell right there. Okay, next, going to the house of Louis Vuitton. We've got two fragrances that I don't think are super focused on the bergamot, but they are like main supporting players. First of which is Imagination. I'm sure you guys are a fan of Imagination, but let me know if you're not. This is a fragrance created by Jacques Cavalier. It was a fragrance that I despised before. Not despised, I just didn't think it was all that. But man, I smelled it on people and the way it was projecting off of people. And I was like, damn, that smells so good. I don't know what he's put in here, but I don't know, some stuff is in there like musks or some ingredients that when it hits the skin and it projects off the skin, it's kind of addicting. But it's simplistic, kind of a tea bergamot kind of a thing. And very, very fresh, very invigorating, crisp, clean. Yeah, I didn't care for it because I felt it was just underwhelming compared to some of the other fragrances, especially the ones in the black bottles at Louis Vuitton. But sometimes I don't like everything right off the bat and things grow on me. For example, the one that really happened to me dramatically was the Baccarat Rouge 540. I hated that stuff. But this stuff is good. It's very fresh. I think in the summertime it smells really great. Imagination. In fact, I'm going on a trip next week. I'm going to take that with me. But next, another Louis Vuitton fragrance, Sur la Route. There's a rumor this is discontinued, or is it Orage that's discontinued? I'm not 100% sure, but I think Au Hazard got discontinued. Is it true? If you guys have the scoop, let me know. I haven't kept up with Louis Vuitton fragrances. I think the only 2 fragrances that I want and need from the house that I don't have, Elves and the Amber in the Middle Eastern collection that is also has the oud and the sandalwood. That Amber I'm going to get one day. You guys wait and see. Probably when I'm in France. But Sur la Route to me is kind of like an Eau Sauvage. It's a citrus aromatic. It's so juicy, very, very sparkling and effervescent, clean, but citrus overdose, aromatics overdose, some light woods under there, and some musky notes as well. I feel like, going back to imagination, I feel like it is a bit of a recycled formula for Jacques Cavalier. He's created fragrances like this. He did white tea for Bvlgari. It's my favorite of the 2 tea fragrances versus the green tea and the white tea. I much prefer the white tea that he created. But I feel like a lot of the formulas that Jacques Cavalier has created are a bit recycled. Will he ever recreate Rive Gauche pour Homme for Louis Vuitton? Will he? Let's see if he does, because I feel like some of the formulas, like Bvlgari's Tigar, is also L'Immensité from Louis Vuitton. So afternoon swim, sometimes people connect it to the Bvlgari's Tigar. So it's yeah, I mean, perfumers do this. But Sur la Route, again, I feel like if you have Eau Sauvage, you might not need it. But if you want something like it, it's quite invigorating. It's a really, really nicely done fragrance that kind of takes you back to some of the classic citrus aromatics or citrus chypres of the yesteryear in a very modern way. So I'm highlighting this fragrance as well, but it's not one of my favorite fragrances. I'm highlighting it because it does have a lot of bergamot, but this is Citrus Batiganga from the house of Maison Crivelli. Whoa, look at that. This thing came off, which goes in there. So I don't like the usage of hot, spicy pepper with like a citrus overdose. This has it in there. First spray, it's not so prominent. On skin, it really develops and becomes spicy. It almost kills the idea of a citrus. I mean, I love to eat spicy food. I eat spicy food quite often. And once you put it in your mouth, it overpowers everything else. So kind of doing the same thing with the citrus. Not so prominent and obvious here on the strip, but on skin, it's like, that doesn't work for me. Do the spicy notes with some more substantial notes, you know? Maybe like chocolate and hot spice kind of a thing. Do it with that. But it doesn't work for me with the citrus, but maybe you guys might like it. What do you think? Have you guys tried Citrus Batiganga? Definitely not one of my favorite fragrances from the house. I think that's created by Bertrand Duchaufour. So next we've got Maison Francis Kurkdjian. We have 2 fragrances. First of which is Acqua Media Cologne Forte. This is a fragrance that was launched as Acqua Media Cologne Forte. And previous to this, they relaunched 3 existing fragrances from MFK into the Cologne Forte collection, right? Is that what it is? It was Acqua Universalis Cologne Forte, Acqua Vitae Cologne Forte, and I can't remember the other one's name, but let's talk about this one. Once again, this is a citrus aromatic with tea kind of touches as well. There's fennel and verbena here. It's so juicy, so juicy, and also very, very green. And I think we're getting that juiciness from the bergamot note. Do you guys get the pulpiness with this one also? It's quite pulpy. Like, just think of the pulp in, I don't know, aloe vera, but we're thinking about the pulp in the citrus fruits. A lot of stuff happens behind the scenes, guys, that get edited out normally. But yeah, think of the pulp in citrus fruits, but I'm thinking more dramatically like in aloe vera, that like squishy pulp, the succulency. I get that a little bit here, but it's so aromatic, so intensely aromatic because it's a fennel and verbena, and it's a lemon verbena also has that lemony aromatic herbal touch, and of course the juiciness of the bergamot. It's nice. I kind of was underwhelmed at first, but I've grown to really enjoy Acqua Media Cologne Forte. And I think a lot of people compare it to Elizabeth Arden Green Tea, which Francis Kurkdjian also created back in the late 90s, I believe. And then the next fragrance, and again, these two are not like bergamot star fragrances. I mean, the bergamot's there's quite a bit of it, but it's not the main player. Same thing with this one. This is Acqua Universalis Forte. And Acqua Universalis Forte is lemons and bergamot with that kind of clean, musky, fabric, cloth, linen, soapy cleanness that I pick up a lot in MFK fragrances. To me, it smells quite musky, but there's something electric in there, smelling like you know when the dryer is spinning, that smell that captures in there with a little bit of that dryer sheet soapiness and the electricity gives me that kind of a vibe. And I started noticing that much later as the fragrance has like totally adapted to me. Like I've been talking about this fragrance for 10 years. I think the first time I wore it was in 2014. And now it's giving me this electric fabric, clean, soapy muskiness. It's quite good. It's a fragrance I've worn quite a bit of. I really like it. That is Acqua Universalis Forte. And it's the usage of not only bergamot, but lemons. But this next fragrance from the house of Molton Brown in their older bottle is orange and bergamot. So they have the EDT, which this is, and they also have an EDP. I've never really worn the EDP. This is the EDT or Eau de Toilette, as I said. It's a simplistic orange and bergamot combo. I think it's equal amounts of orange and bergamot here. Both juicy citruses. It's so fresh. It's so clean. And once again, this is also a bit sweet because in the end, oranges are not necessarily tart. Of course, there's tart varieties out there, but to me, it's mostly a sweet fruit. So it's got a sweetness here is what I'm trying to say. And the fact that the bergamot is not necessarily super tart either, it sweetens up the fragrance. So this is definitely a citrus fragrance that's on the sweet side. So that is orange and bergamot Eau de Toilette from the house of Molton Brown in their older bottles. So since I got on the scene in 2012, I have seen Molton Brown change bottles twice. So when I first got on the scene, Molton Brown had different bottles, which I believe had different fragrances as well. They discontinued all those, relaunched their fragrances in these bottles around 2017, somewhere around there, 2018. And then they relaunched the bottles again like late 2019. So I hope they're happy with their new bottles. I like their new bottles. What do you guys think? These bottles were kind of ugly, by the way. I'm glad they got rid of them. Okay, next up we've got a fragrance from the house of Mugler. It's cologne. And if I didn't mention it already, Mugler Cologne is coming back. I actually have featured it in another video discussing it's coming back, airing soon. But in the fresh fragrances video, I highlighted this, my OG bottle from like the late 2000s, where at one time, you know, it used to be Terry Mugler, as you can see. That still smells good today, by the way. And I finally found my Mugler Cologne come together. So Mugler, in the late, I think around 2017, they rebranded the Mugler Cologne as Come Together. And they launched 4 or 5 additional fragrances in this series. Then a year later, they launched 2 more, which I never got my nose on. And they had different varieties of these fresh fragrances. One of my favorites was one that Sonia Constant did, was called Fly Away, and it was cannabis with grapefruit. I love that smell. But Mugler Cologne is coming back, and it's coming back as just Mugler Cologne. Not Terry Mugler, but Mugler Cologne. There used to be a little something here as well. As you can see in my my bottle, it's fallen off. Bummer. But what's Mugler Cologne all about? Well, first of all, it's a modernized take on that traditional eau de cologne style of fragrance, once again. And it's soapy, it's clean, it's got a lot of bergamot, that's the juiciness. It's got a lot of petitgrain, which is the bitter greenness. And of course, the citrus floral notes, neroli and orange blossom are in there. And then there's also white musk in there. So it's clean, it's soapy, it's fresh, it's invigorating, and it's super citrusy and juicy with the bergamot. I'm glad it's coming back. I think it's a good style. People like these fresh fragrances, even though I feel like I much prefer the deeper, stronger fragrances. I'm a big lover of citruses. I am from the Mediterranean, I always say, and we grew up with a lot of citruses, and I love citrusy things, so I appreciate citruses quite a bit. But as a collector of vintage fragrances, I always make sure if I am going to buy a vintage fragrance, I make sure there's not a lot of citruses in the top notes, because I know those things are the first to go, and it could turn the fragrance and your top notes could be off. But going back to Cologne again, I'm glad they're bringing it back. It's a great freshie. I don't know when it's coming to the States. I know it's already out in Europe because I've been advertised to on Facebook. But again, really great fragrance creation by Alberto Morillas in 2001. And I think the inspiration was Terry Mugler had discovered a soap in Marseille. I don't know if this is correct or not, but they kind of created a smell or fragrance around that soap. Anyway, let's move on to 3 fragrances from the house of Nishane. First of which is Ombre Calabria. I'm featuring this here because there's a lot of bergamot here. It's an amber fragrance that's fresh. There's an amber fragrance that's green, and it's an amber fragrance that's vanillic. So it's fresh because there's a lot of bergamot. It's green because there's a lot of galbanum. And it's vanillic because there's vanilla with the amber. So you can really smell the juiciness of the bergamot in this. It's so good. It's like one of the best fragrances ever created by the house of Nishane. And I don't think it's loved as much as their other fragrance, the Hachivat, which I don't have here, because I think it's not as prominent with the bergamot. I think there's a lot of grapefruit in that one. But this stuff, so good, so good. If you like original fragrances, if you like an amber, but something a bit more fresher and a greener and juicy, citrusy, definitely try Ombre Calabria. It's smelling so fantastic right now. I just want to eat it up, you know? It's so good. So good. The next fragrance from Nishane is the OG Colognise. And the Colognise is it's extrait de cologne is what they say, first of all. I don't know if you could see the bottom there. I put C on it because it's not so easy to figure out. Anyway, it's Colognise. This is Colognise, the OG Colognise. But once again, it's like your traditional eau de cologne style fragrance, a bit modernized here, and in a stronger concentration, they say, extrait de cologne. And it's quite invigorating. It's very juicy, citrusy. I feel like there's bergamot here, and not only bergamot, but there's lemony touches in here as well. So there's other citruses combined with the bergamot. There's green aromatic notes. There's, citrus leaves. There's some light floral notes, but really wonderful, freshy. So fresh and invigorating. And it's basically to like waken you up, waking your senses up, which is what a lot of citruses do. And going back to waking your senses up, if you wake up in the morning and you're like down and it's gloomy out, the citruses do have that kind of uplifting quality. Isn't that why people drink juice in the morning instead of coffee? They just wake up. Maybe that's what it is. But the next fragrance from Nishane Wulong Cha is also a tea and bergamot focused fragrance. Once again, it's the bergamot with tea. Probably one of the best tea fragrances on the market. Yum. It's so yum. What I get from green tea, I've mentioned that I've worn quite a bit of L'Occitane's green thé vert. I don't even know if they make that anymore. Thé vert, white tea, it's thé blanc, and also wore the mint and green tea. This reminds me of the OG thé vert, but in a much more substantial way. But tea fragrances are so super smooth, instantly, like, subconsciously gives me that kind of relaxed feel. This is quite green as well, but not as green as the Amber Calabria. And I almost feel like both of them are somehow connected. But I feel like Wulong Cha is more popular than Amber Calabria. I feel like Amber Calabria is more substantial than Wulong Cha. But both of them are so, so good. Two of the best from the house of Nishane. And definitely two utilizing a lot of bergamot. Let me know if you're a fan of Wulong Cha or Amber Calabria. Maybe you're a fan of Colognise instead. Add a comment below. I do want to say, if this is the first time you're tuning into my channel and you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do subscribe to the channel. And also click that bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos like this. And please give a thumbs up for this video so it'll help with the algorithm so more people will find this video. So let's go on to the third Bergamotto di Calabria fragrance from the house of Paris Monte Carlo. Remember, there's this one, there's the Guerlain, and then there's the Acqua di Parma. No copyrights, no trademarks. I guess you can't really trademark that, or maybe you can, I don't know. But once again, very clean, ice cold take on bergamot fragrance. In the end, it's got the juiciness, and I feel like here there's addition of citruses as well. And there's light floral notes. There's some musky woods under there, but it's just a very, very fresh, clean, out of the shower freshness, or in the heat of summer invigoratingness, but so super clean. I like that one quite a bit as a smell. There is a slight classic edge about it. And I'm getting that not only from the Paris Monte Carlo, but also the Guerlain and even the Acqua di Parma. So were they copying one another with those three fragrances? I don't know if they were, but they have similarities is what I'm trying to say. But let's move on to a house called Proad. It's Bergamot and Oud. So not Oud and Bergamot like Joe Malone, but Bergamot and Oud, created by Dominique Ropion, and also much more substantial in comparison to the Oud and Bergamot. And Proad is also a brand that we have in Scent Club currently. If you haven't bought your latest Scent Club kit, guys, get it now. We have Proad's Blue Whiskey on the Rock in a old-fashioned glass. It's a boozy fragrance, and there's also the fragrance Taipei from One Day, which is a savory gourmand, and of course the animalic sweet musk of Filthy Musk from the house of Born to Stand Out. But Bergamot and Oud is so substantial compared to the Joe Malone. This is also a bit more funky. The Oud in here is definitely not the Oud that's in Oud and Bergamot from Joe Malone. Yeah, you definitely have some funk here. I don't know what variety of oud they're using, but it's the real thing. It's like pretty overwhelming also. Whereas the other smells very clean. Here, it's a bit funky, and it takes over the bergamot, even though bergamot is the first word in the fragrance. So if you like it a bit funky and naturalistic kind of oud, try this. Although, the more I smell it, it might be still, I think, a westernized oud. It's not like something the realistic thing. But for me, it smells real. It doesn't smell like an oud accord. It smells like definitely the real oud that they're using in this. Or, once again, it could also be an accord that they've created to smell a bit animalic like this. So I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely a lot of oud with a the bergamot swimming around it, but not like taking over as much as the oud is like dominating in that fragrance. Fairly new to me, so I have to test it out further, but let me know if you're a fan of bergamot and oud from the house of Proad. Let's move on to a fragrance from the house of Parfum Aroma. It's Orangea. Orangea for me is one of the best citrus fragrances. It's petitgrain, bergamot, and one of the best green citrus fragrances. And oh yeah, it smells so good. The thing I like about this fragrance, there's a undertone of creaminess, and I'm not sure where that comes from. Almost acting a bit like suntan lotion, like maybe coconut, but there's no mention of these kind of notes in here. But to me, the bitterness of the green petitgrain, it's the leaves of the bitter orange tree. It's the star here with the juiciness of the citrus of bergamot. And the two together work so wonderfully together. I love it when they combine the bitter, petitgrain note with the bergamot note. It just really intensifies one another and makes for the fragrance to smell so much better. Really awesome. And that is a linear fragrance, so you can rub that thing away as much as you want, and you're not going to destroy the top notes. What do we got here? Let's see. So next, a discontinued fragrance from the house of Raja Parfums. So early on in my journey, Raja Parfums was a brand that was just something I was discovering. And a lot of people, he didn't have distribution, and a lot of people ordered fragrances from their UK website. And all of a sudden, they were discounting a lot of fragrances. One of the fragrances that I knew I really loved was the bergamot that they had. I bought 2 bottles of this, like 50, even 60% off. I think it was discontinued. And then I think there was another one. Now I'm drawing a blank what the other one was. This is definitely one of the best bergamot fragrances. In fact, I believe I did a video of this, Labo's Bergamot 22, and Xerjoff's Nio as 3 of the best bergamot fragrances. Oh, so good. To me, this bergamot is not as good as the Labo, but really super good. This is also quite floral. There's some floral touches in here. Not as juicy as Labo's. This is a bit more dry and powdery, but super awesome. Really, really great. I hadn't pulled that out in ages. It's hidden way in the back, but I knew that I had to feature it here and talk about it because this is, after all, a bergamot video. And again, not everything is available and selling still, but a lot of these fragrances are, so that's good about it. But I didn't want to leave that one out. Let me know if you have ever sampled Raja Parfums Bergamot Extrait. Add a comment below so I can find out. So next, we're going to the house of Rosendo Matu, number 1 Bergamot, Tea Leaf, and Sandalwood. The number 1 fragrance in the collection, but the most popular is number 5. Are you a fan of number 5? Are you a fan of number 1? Once again, it's bergamot and tea. This is really, really great. But I feel like when you are in love with number 5, this might come off a bit too simplistic. But in the end, it's got that creaminess of the sandalwood, which, for me, the tea and the sandalwood really complement one another, but they're both cozy notes. So it's super invigorating and then relaxing when it's drying down. And it's so, so awesome. Very, very fresh, very green and juicy and creamy woody. I don't think it's the most popular from the brand. I don't know. Let me know if you're a fan of this. And how do you rank it with other Rosendo Matu fragrances? Add a comment below. But definitely it's like a top 5 for me from this house. I really love the way it smells. And I love that whole coziness with the tea and the sandalwood when it's drying down. Okay, next, we don't have a lot more fragrances left, guys. Next, we're going to the house of Sospiro. It is Vibrato. And again, I didn't feature Tiger here because it is grapefruit. But as I was saying earlier, I felt like magnifying bergamot had a little bit of the qualities of Tiger. So I'm assuming the bergamot note does appear in Tiger. They just don't mention it. It is here, but in this Sospiro Vibrato, they also have grapefruit and bergamot. They also have ginger and other notes. But I love that. Actually, I love the Tiger DNA. It's super sexy, I think. With Tiger, I feel like it's extremely dry fragrance. It's a bit more creamy here, not as dry as Tiger. And then, of course, there's Kajal 3, which also has this underlying creaminess, which makes it, like, not necessarily dry, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys experience fragrances that way in textures. I do. And for me, I always mentioned dry doesn't last as long because I have dry skin. My skin is not, I don't know, what's the opposite of dry? So I have dry skin, so it doesn't last as long as like a fragrance that's syrupy, sticky, sweet kind of, although we're not talking about sweet here. But yeah, for me, Vibrato does last much longer, but it does give me the idea of Tiger. But I love that DNA. It's a great DNA. So let's move on to the house of Van Cleef & Arpels. It's Te Amara. And once again, it's tea and bergamot, green leaning, very fresh and herbal. I believe this one also has mint. Yeah. So the tea in this one is super grassy, but I feel like I'm getting that from the mint as well. And the mint in here reminds me a little bit of the mint in You or Someone Like You, where it's dried up mint and crushed and used in the fragrance. I don't know if my video of my discussion with the lady that was working on the co-op of the lavender. In that video, she mentions one of the ingredients, I believe the clary sage, is dried first and then converted to the oil. And I feel like that's what happened to the mint in this fragrance. And also in You or Someone Like You. Because there's the idea of fresh mint and dried mint. And I grew up with mint. We use not only the fresh mint, but also the dried mint in our cuisine. And so I can tell the difference. And with this Te Amara, it's definitely dried mint. And some people prefer the fresh, some people prefer the dry. I like both as long as it's not toothpastey. I don't like wearing fragrances that kind of have a toothpastey smell. All right, next we're going to a cheapie from the house of Victorinox. It's Morning Dew. So it's bergamot. It's also wet and aquatic. It's also a lot of aromatics. There's the herbal qualities. It's very fresh. It's very fresh. Very, very fresh. Super clean. Dewy. It's called Morning Dew. It's a bit frosty and wet, of course. And the juiciness. I think this is a perfect fragrance if you're on the budget. I think it's a ladies' targeted fragrance also, by the way. But it doesn't smell so feminine, you know? It's a very aromatic, clean, a bit frosted, you know, aromatic citrus fragrance, Morning Dew. And of course, very aquatic because it's got that word dew, and I'm smelling, I almost feel like there's a violet leaves in here to give you that kind of ozonic wet experience, like cucumbers a little bit. Not the smell, but the wetness and the juiciness of cucumbers. So it's a very fresh fragrance with a lot of bergamot and the idea of some ozonic aromatic touches. That is Morning Dew. Next, we've got two fragrances from the house of Wilhelm Parfumerie. This is Dear Polly. So, you guys like these bottles? This bottle was designed by Pierre Dinan. And I've got a video on the channel talking to Pierre Dinan, the bottle designer who's designed so many bottles. And he did this bottle, and you can tell his signature in this bottle. Go catch that video if you want to learn about bottles, perfume bottles. But Dear Polly is probably one of the more popular fragrances from the house of Wilhelm. This to me, once again, is, I believe, a tea fragrance. What I'm smelling is tea with a lot of juicy bergamot. They work wonderfully together. If you've ever had Earl Grey tea, by the way, I'm a big lover of Earl Grey. One of my favorite Earl Grey teas is from Mariage Frere. And it's got bergamot in there. You know, bergamot is used in tea. I spoke about bergamot earlier in a gelato, or I'm sorry, in a sorbet that I get in the south of France. There's a liqueur made with bergamot. I actually take bergamot pills. So bergamot is not only used in perfume, but it's a lot of usage in perfumes, but also in tea, in Earl Grey tea. It's definitely a lot of it in there. And this smells like Earl Grey tea to me. Like I do a lot of loose leaf, but when I was buying tea bags and you open the tea bag, that smell is so, so good. And this is what I get with Dear Polly. And then we've got Morning Chess. Morning Chess is a... What's his name? Now I'm drawing a blank with his name. Jerome Epinay. So Jerome Epinay does a lot of Wilhelm perfumery fragrances. He does a lot of Byredo fragrances. And Morning Chess is probably one of the more popular ones from Wilhelm, which is also somewhat similar to Aventus. This is galbanum, bergamot, and leather, I believe. But it's so juicy. So juicy. It's also like the peel a little bit. Like when you're ever handling the peel of lemons or maybe limes, because, you know, you're going to take a shot of margarita and suck on the juice of a lime wedge. And if you get the oils on your fingers and, it ends up in your nose and you're smelling it, it's kind of giving me that kind of a vibe. There's that kind of like astringent, sharp, tart oiliness in here, which I'm assuming is, taken on from the peel of the bergamot here. But it's a great scent. It's Aventus-like for sure. And so if you like that sort of thing, you should get it. It'll settle down to a leather when it's drying down. Sorry, I'm falling down a little bit. But it's if you have Aventus, you might not like this. But for me, I get a lot more juiciness with this in comparison to something like Aventus, This to me is much more juicier. And it's a bit more inviting, whereas Aventus is, it's good. It's not like, wow. But that's Morning Chess. 3 more fragrances, guys. Next, we're going to the house of Voyage Imaginaire Tea and Rock and Roll. Another tea fragrance. Yes, tea and bergamot. Remember, Earl Grey tea. Love Earl Grey tea. This is so good as a tea fragrance. I don't know if you guys know the brand Voyage Imaginaire. I actually featured them in a Scent Club kit with their fragrance L'Eau d'Immortelle. Really awesome Immortelle focused fragrance. It's an amber. If you haven't discovered it, please go discover it. We have some of the atomizers left for that one. But they also did a really nice tea fragrance. It's a bit green leaning, but lots of bergamot. It's juicy, but that same smoothness of the tea note is so prominent here. It's very fresh. And once again, opening up that tea bag, that smell is captured here so vividly and perfectly. And the fragrances of Voyage Imaginaire are 100% natural. I shot a video with them at the Paris Perfume Week. It's 2 perfumers. It's 2 perfumers that used to be with Annick Goutal. And it's Camille Goutal, who's Annick Goutal's daughter, and Isabelle Doyen, who created this. Go catch my video, and you'll learn a little bit more about the fragrances that they create. And this is definitely one of the best that they've created. Once again, it's a smooth, cozy tea, green and juicy with, bergamot. So good. So 2 more fragrances. We've got one from the house of Xerjoff. It's Nio. Yes, this is along with the Raja I just spoke about and the Le Labo were 3 of the first bergamot-focused fragrances that I had ever gotten. And I knew at the time I love bergamot. Bergamot is such a great note. Not only is it a note that's always used in fragrances, but it can be a star note as well. The Nio is a bit classic to me. There's a bit of an old school men's cologne-like smell to it, which is totally fine, that I like about this. It's not so classic, but it does smell, I mean, it is classic smelling, but not necessarily very classic smelling is what I'm trying to say. But it also smells so luxurious, you know, so high-end, really quality ingredients and things like that. But the citruses in here are so super juicy. There's aromatics. It might come off a little bit like barbershop-y, but not fully going there. I think the aromatics that are in here, the green notes in here, give you that kind of a vibe. But a lot of petitgrain-like notes, or maybe it's galbanum, giving me a greenness in this. But super awesome. I've forgotten how great Nio was, but if you haven't tried Nio, do try it, especially if you like something a bit more masculine, classic leaning. And one more fragrance. I'm going to leave the video with this fragrance from the house of Zara. It's Vibrant Leather. Once again, created by Jérôme Epinay, who created Morning Chest, and he probably copied himself. So both of the fragrances do smell similar, but probably he uses much cheaper ingredients in the Zara and more expensive ingredients in the Morning Chest. But I don't know for 100%. But if you don't know Vibrant Leather, it's bergamot and leather. And there's probably one other note as well. But it gives you the Aventus vibes. And it gives me the Morning Chest vibes because it reminds me of it. It gets leathery, but it's so juicy and zingy. It's so good. I'm not the biggest fan of Aventus. I like it. I don't like hype it all over the place. But I think I like what Jérôme Epinay did with Morning Chest and also Vibrant Leather. He gave it a more zing to it, almost taking it to the direction of Tigar. And Tigar wasn't around at that time. But a great, focus on bergamot with this fragrance. Super awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's still around. No wonder Zara makes so many flankers of this. I first discovered this fragrance when it was in a different bottle. Then they changed it to another bottle, and then they finally settled on this bottle. And since this bottle design, this used to be also gray or silver. It also used to be 120. I think it's 100 ml now. But now they've got flankers, so must be doing well for them. That's why they keep cranking out flankers. But the OG Vibrant Leather is really great, representation for bergamot. If you like bergamot and leather in the dry down, definitely try that. All right, that's the last fragrance I'm talking about today. It went on longer than normal, but we had a few little problems in the video, but I'm not going to edit this video. I'm going to air it as is. The only thing I'm going to have to do is watch it to get the timestamps, but it's a lot of bergamot in this video. Let me know if you're a fan of bergamot and you're going to enjoy some of the fragrances here, or you enjoy some of the fragrances and you have some of these. If there's something I did not mention, let me know what it is. Add a comment below. Again, I don't have every single fragrance. This is a studio full of 6,000 bottles, but I'm sure there's probably 6,000 more fragrances out there, maybe even 20,000. I don't know how many fragrances are there in the world, but a lot. But I'm trying to include as much as I can, and this is what I have as far as bergamot goes. But if there's something missing that you consider an important bergamot fragrance, do let me know what it is. Add a comment below so I can find out. I do want to say one more thing, guys. Do you want to see more citrus-focused fragrances in these long-form videos? Summer's coming around, like almost coming to, not an end yet, but like we're almost through with July. And so August is pretty much the only summer month, pretty much. People go back to school and work and things. So do you want to see more fresh focused videos? Do you want to see a video on neroli? I was planning orange. If you do, add a comment below. But if there's anything other in a theme you would like to see, let me know that as well. I know I want to plan a few videos on perfumers, but I won't say who right now. But I do want to plan a few videos on perfumers, so stay tuned for those as well. But also, after this video airs, I am heading out of town for a week. So thankfully, I have some videos that are on the back burner I can air while I'm gone. But if there's anything you want to see, let me know. Let me know if you want to see neroli and a deep dive like this. If you want to see orange, But I think if I do those 2 videos, it might be like those are the 2 last, you know, fresh themed videos that have to kind of start focusing on autumn and some deeper themes as far as genre deep dives go, or, you know, notes deep dives go. But let me know, add some comments below, and I appreciate you tuning in. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe by clicking the subscribe button, and please click the bell icon so you'll be notified for future videos so you don't miss out. And again, please give a thumbs up for this video so it helps with the algorithm and other people will discover the video. Anyway, stay tuned for another video soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.